here, you coward! I know what you did! Get out here now!
You know that moment when your whole life turns to shit? Mine started with a dinner party I never wanted to host, featuring people I couldn't stand, all gathered around my dining room table like vultures at a roadkill buffet. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name's Nathan Cross, and if you're expecting some sob story about a broken-hearted husband, you can stop reading now. Sure, I got played. Sure, my wife turned out to be a backstabbing snake. But this isn't about crying into my beer. This is about what happens when you push a logistics expert too far. See, I spent 12 years in the Army managing supply chains in places where one mistake meant people faded. Now I run warehouse operations for a mid-sized distribution company in Millbrook, Connecticut. Population 15,000, where everyone knows everyone else's business, and gossip spreads faster than a grease fire. My wife Erin had invited her usual crew over for what she called a networking dinner. I called it a circus for narcissists, but I kept that opinion to myself, usually. "Nathan, can you please try to be social tonight?" Erin said, adjusting her black cocktail dress for the third time. At 40, she still looked good, real estate agent good, with that polished smile that could sell a haunted house to a priest. "Logan's coming, and he's been going through a tough time." Logan Mitchell, personal trainer turned fitness influencer, with the kind of fake humble attitude that made me want to punch walls. 6'2", all muscle and teeth, the kind of guy who called everyone buddy while mentally calculating how much he could bench press with your corpse. "Define tough time," I said, straightening my tie. I'd worn my best shirt, navy blue, pressed sharp enough to cut glass. If I had to play host to these people, I'd at least look the part. "His divorce just finalized. Sophie took half of everything." Erin's voice carried that fake sympathy she used when she wanted to sound caring but didn't actually give a damn. The doorbell rang, and Erin practically sprinted to answer it. I followed at a more reasonable pace, already dreading the next 3 hours. First through the door was Marcy Chen, Erin's best friend and professional gossip distributor. 38, blonde highlights, and a laugh that could shatter windows. Behind her came Tasha Williams, Erin's loyal sidekick, who agreed with everything Erin said like a human echo chamber. Then Logan walked in, and I watched my wife's face light up like Christmas morning. "Logan, you look amazing!" Erin gushed, giving him a hug that lasted about 3 seconds too long. "I'm so glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it, beautiful," Logan said, flashing those perfect teeth. He looked at me over Erin's shoulder. "Hey there, Nathan. Thanks for having me." I nodded. "Logan." The rest of the crew filtered in. Phil Martinez, my buddy from work and the only person I actually wanted there. Heather Ross, who used to work at my company before transferring to Portland. And the Johnsons from down the street, who Erin had invited to round out the numbers. We gathered in the dining room, where Erin had set the table with our good china. She'd made her famous lasagna, which was actually pretty damn good, I had to admit, and opened 2 bottles of wine that cost more than I made in a day. The conversation started innocently enough. Work, weather, local politics. Then Logan started holding court. "So I'm launching this new fitness program," he said, gesturing with his wine glass. "It's all about functional strength and mental toughness, the kind of training that builds real men." "That sounds incredible," Erin said, leaning forward. "Tell us more." I caught Phil's eye across the table. He gave me a look that said, "This guy's full of shit and we both know it." Logan launched into his sales pitch, talking about warrior mindset and alpha conditioning. The women hung on every word like he was revealing the secrets of the universe. Even Heather, who I'd always thought was pretty level-headed, seemed mesmerized. "The problem with most guys today," Logan continued, "is they've gone soft. They sit behind desks all day, let their women make the decisions, never push themselves beyond their comfort zone. He looked directly at me when he said it. I mean, no offense, Nathan. I'm sure you work hard at your warehouse thing. But when's the last time you really challenged yourself? When's the last time you felt like a warrior? The table went quiet. I felt every eye on me, waiting for my response. Erin's face had gone slightly pink. Embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell which. Well, I said, setting down my fork carefully. I spent 12 years in the Army, including 2 deployments to Afghanistan. So I'd say last Tuesday, when I had to explain to a 22-year-old private why his supply requisition got rejected. Logan's smile faltered for just a moment. Right. Military service, that's great. But I'm talking about now. Civilian life. Staying sharp when you don't have someone ordering you around. Nobody ever ordered me around, Logan. I was the one giving the orders. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Erin jumped in, her voice artificially bright. Logan's just passionate about fitness, she said. He's helped so many people transform their lives. I'm sure he has, I said. Transformation seems to be his specialty. Phil coughed into his wine glass, trying not to laugh. Logan's jaw tightened. You know what? You're right, Nathan. Transformation is exactly what I do. I help people become the best versions of themselves. I help them break out of patterns that aren't serving them anymore. He looked at Erin when he said it, and she looked back. Something passed between them, a glance that lasted maybe 2 seconds, but felt like an hour. That's when I knew. Not suspected, not wondered. Knew. My wife was sleeping with the fitness influencer. That's fascinating, I said, my voice perfectly level. And how exactly do you help married people transform? Do you work with couples, or do you prefer one-on-one sessions? Logan's face went red. Erin's went white. I think we should change the subject, Marcy said quickly. No, I'm curious, I continued. See, in my line of work, we're always looking for ways to optimize systems, remove inefficiencies, eliminate redundancies. I'm wondering if Logan's transformation process involves similar principles. Nathan, Erin said, her voice sharp with warning. What? I'm just trying to understand the business model. Does Logan charge by the hour? By the session? Or does he prefer some kind of ongoing arrangement? Logan stood up so fast, his chair nearly tipped over. You know what? I don't have to listen to this shit. Language, Logan, I said mildly. There are ladies present. Screw you, Nathan. Logan, Erin snapped, but she was looking at me like I was the problem. I stood up slowly, deliberately. At 5'10", I was shorter than Logan, but I'd learned a long time ago that height wasn't what mattered in a confrontation. Confidence was. Control was. You're absolutely right, I said. You don't have to listen to anything. In fact, you don't have to be here at all. This is my house, my table, my food, my wine, and you're no longer welcome. Nathan! Erin was on her feet now, too. Apologize. Right now. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. The way she was standing between me and Logan. The way she was protecting him instead of backing up her husband. The way she was more concerned about his feelings than mine. No, I said simply. What did you just say to me? I said no. I'm not apologizing to someone who comes into my house and disrespects me at my own table. Erin's face was flushed with anger. Logan is our guest. He's going through a difficult time and you're being cruel. Our guest? Funny, I don't remember inviting him. The room was silent now. Even the Johnsons, who barely knew any of us, were staring like they were watching a car accident. Erin stepped closer to me, her voice low and dangerous. Fix this, now, or we're going to have a serious problem. I smiled. Not a nice smile. The kind of smile I used to give supply sergeants who tried to shortchange my unit on ammunition. Erin, sweetheart, we already have a serious problem. You just don't know it yet. She blinked, confused by my tone. Logan was standing behind her, fists clenched, probably debating whether he could take me in a fight. He was bigger, younger, stronger, but I'd been in actual fights, not just gym sparring sessions. "You want done?" I continued, my voice perfectly calm. "Give me 48 hours, then we'll see what done really looks like." I walked out of the dining room, leaving them all staring after me. Behind me, I heard Erin apologizing frantically, trying to salvage the evening. I heard Logan's voice, lower now, probably playing the wounded victim. I went to my study and closed the door. Then I sat down at my desk and started planning. See, here's what people don't understand about logistics. It's not just about moving stuff from point A to point B. It's about timing, coordination, and contingency planning. It's about seeing 3 moves ahead and having backup plans for your backup plans. And right now, I was looking at a supply chain that needed some serious optimization. About an hour later, after the guests had finally left, I heard Erin in the kitchen with Marcy and Tasha cleaning up. They thought I couldn't hear them, but our house had thin walls and I had good ears. "I can't believe Nathan embarrassed you like that," Marcy was saying. "Logan was just trying to be friendly." "He's been weird lately," Erin replied, "suspicious about everything, asking questions about where I've been, who I'm with." "Maybe he knows," Tasha said quietly. "Knows what?" Erin's voice was sharp. "About you and Logan. Girl, it's obvious. The way you two look at each other, the way you light up when he texts. So it wasn't just my imagination." "We're just friends," Erin said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Friends who spend 3 nights a week at his apartment?" Marcy laughed. "Honey, I've seen friends, and that ain't it." "It's complicated," Erin said finally. "Nathan and we've been having problems for months. He's so boring, so predictable. Logan makes me feel alive again. He makes me feel beautiful." "Does he make you feel beautiful when you're lying to your husband?" Tasha asked. "Don't lecture me," Erin snapped. "You don't know what it's like being married to someone who thinks excitement is a new episode of his military documentaries. Logan is passionate, ambitious. He's going places. And Nathan isn't? Nathan's 44 years old and manages a warehouse. That's his ceiling. Logan's building an empire." I sat in my chair, listening to my wife tear me apart to her friends, hearing her reduce our 16-year marriage to boring and predictable, hearing her talk about Logan like he was some kind of visionary instead of a divorced personal trainer with delusions of grandeur. But what really got me was the casual way she said it, like I was just an obstacle to her happiness, like our life together meant nothing. That's when I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling angry. The next morning, Erin acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, kissed my cheek, and told me she had showings all day. Just another Tuesday in suburban Connecticut. "I'm sorry about last night," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Logan can be a little intense sometimes." "Is that what we're calling it?" She looked up sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that intense is an interesting word choice." She studied my face, probably trying to figure out how much I knew. I kept my expression neutral, a skill I'd learned dealing with superior officers who were fishing for information. "Nathan, are we okay?" I smiled and kissed her forehead. "We're fine, honey. Just fine." She left for work, and I called in sick. First time I'd used a personal day in 6 months, but I had research to do. See, Logan might have been good at selling fitness programs to bored housewives, but he was shit at operational security. His entire life was documented on social media. Instagram posts showing his daily routine, Facebook check-ins at restaurants and gyms, Twitter updates about his workout schedule. It took me exactly 45 minutes to map out his weekly pattern. Tuesdays and Thursdays, he trained clients at the gym from 6 a.m. to noon. Wednesday evenings, he had his entrepreneur meetup at Murphy's Bar downtown. Fridays, he did his grocery shopping at the Whole Foods on Elm Street, always between 2 and 3 p.m. because that's when they marked down the organic produce. Logan was a creature of habit, just like most people, and habits could be exploited. I also did some research on his business. Turned out his fitness empire was more like a fitness shack. He rented space at a gym, had maybe 20 regular clients, and his big social media following was mostly bought followers from click farms. His divorce had cost him half his savings, and he was 3 months behind on his car payments. Not exactly the successful entrepreneur Erin thought she was trading up for. By noon, I had a complete dossier on Logan Mitchell. By 1 p.m., I had the beginnings of a plan. By 2 p.m., I was parked outside his apartment complex, watching him load gym equipment into his Toyota Camry. The same Toyota Camry that had been parked in the lot behind Murphy's bar last Wednesday night, the same night Erin had supposedly been at her book club. I followed him to the gym, staying 3 cars back. Basic surveillance, the kind they taught us in advanced logistics training. Logan was oblivious, probably too busy thinking about his next Instagram post to notice the gray Honda Accord in his rearview mirror. At the gym, I watched him work with a client, some middle-aged guy who was clearly paying Logan to yell at him while he did squats. Logan was animated, energetic, playing the part of the motivational guru. But I could see the cracks in the performance, the way he checked his phone every few minutes, the way his smile looked forced when he thought no one was watching. This was a man under pressure. Financial pressure, emotional pressure, the pressure of maintaining an image that didn't match his reality. Pressure was something I could work with. I drove home and spent the rest of the afternoon planning. In the Army, we called it developing the operational environment, identifying assets, threats, opportunities, and vulnerabilities. Logan's vulnerabilities were obvious: money problems, ego, and a tendency to overshare on social media. Erin's were more subtle: her reputation in the real estate community, her need to be seen as successful, and her assumption that I was too boring and predictable to fight back. My assets were patience, attention to detail, and 16 years of marriage that had taught me exactly how my wife's mind worked. The plan I developed was elegant in its simplicity. No violence, no illegal activity, nothing that could come back to bite me in divorce court. Just good old-fashioned psychological warfare executed with military precision. Phase 1. Intelligence gathering. Confirm the affair, document everything, build an unshakable case. Phase 2. Isolation. Turn their support networks against them, piece by piece. Phase 3. Exposure. Bring everything into the light at exactly the right moment for maximum impact. Phase 4. Devastation. Destroy their reputations, their careers, their futures. It was going to take time, patience, and careful execution, but I had all 3 in abundance. That evening, Erin came home late, claiming she'd had to show a property to a difficult client. She smelled like Logan's cologne, something expensive and cloying that he probably bought in bulk from a discount fragrance website. "How was your day?" she asked, settling onto the couch next to me. "Productive," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "Very productive." She leaned against my shoulder, and for just a moment, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her. The way she fit against me, the scent of her shampoo, the warmth of her body. Then I remembered her voice from the night before. "Logan makes me feel alive again." I closed the laptop and stood up. "I'm going to bed," I said. "It's only 9:30. Long day tomorrow." She looked confused but didn't argue. I kissed the top of her head and headed upstairs, leaving her alone with whatever guilt or confusion she was feeling. In the bedroom, I set my alarm for 5 a.m. Tomorrow, Phase 1 would begin in earnest. And Logan Mitchell was about to learn that boring and predictable could be the most dangerous combination of all. The next morning, I was parked outside Logan's apartment complex by 5:15 a.m., sipping coffee from a thermos and watching his building through a pair of binoculars I'd bought years ago for birdwatching, a hobby I'd never actually pursued, but that provided excellent cover for surveillance. Logan emerged at 5:45, right on schedule. He threw his gym bag into the Camry and drove off toward downtown. I gave him a 30-second head start, then followed. But instead of going to the gym, Logan took a detour. He pulled into the parking lot of the Sunrise Diner on Route 7, and my pulse quickened when I saw the familiar silver Lexus already waiting there. Erin's car. I parked across the street behind a delivery truck and watched through the diner's windows as my wife and her lover shared what looked like an intimate breakfast. They sat in a corner booth, leaning across the table toward each other, her hand covering his. Every few minutes, one of them would laugh at something the other said, and Erin would touch his arm or shoulder. I'd eaten breakfast with this woman every morning for 16 years, and she'd never looked at me the way she was looking at Logan Mitchell. I took photos with my phone, not great quality from this distance, but good enough to establish a pattern. Time stamps, license plates, clear shots of both their faces. In logistics, documentation was everything. They spent 45 minutes at the diner. When they finally left, Logan kissed Erin goodbye in the parking lot. Not a friendly peck on the cheek, but a full-on, hands in her hair, bodies pressed together kiss that made my stomach turn. I followed Erin to her real estate office, then doubled back to track Logan to the gym. Normal routine from there. He trained clients until noon, then headed home. But I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the offices of Millbrook Realty, where Erin worked. The receptionist, a young woman named Jessica, who'd always been friendly to me at company parties, looked up with a smile when I walked in. "Nathan, what a nice surprise. Erin's with a client, but she should be free in about 20 minutes. "Actually, I'm not here to see Erin," I said, keeping my voice casual. "I wanted to talk to you about planning a surprise for her. Maybe you could help me figure out her schedule for the next few weeks." Jessica's face lit up. "Oh, that's so sweet. What kind of surprise?" "I'm thinking about a weekend getaway, but you know how busy she's been lately, all those evening appointments and weekend showings. I want to make sure I pick a time when she's actually free." "She has been working a lot of late nights," Jessica agreed, pulling up Erin's calendar on her computer. "Let me see. Last week she had appointments Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings. This week she's got Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday." I memorized the dates, cross-referencing them with what I knew about Logan's schedule. Perfect overlap. "What about weekends? I know she's been doing a lot of weekend work lately." "Oh yes, she's been super dedicated. Last Saturday she spent the whole afternoon with that new client, the one who's looking for investment properties, and this Sunday she's got another appointment." "Investment properties? That's great. Business must be booming." "Well, actually," Jessica lowered her voice conspiratorially, "between you and me, I think it's just one client. But he's looking at a lot of properties. She's been spending tons of time with him. I keep telling her she should introduce him to some of the other agents, spread the work around, but she says he specifically requested her. Smart woman, when you find a good client, you hold on to them." I thanked Jessica and left, my head spinning with the implications. Erin wasn't just having an affair, she was using her job as cover, creating fake appointments to explain her absences. She'd turned her entire professional life into an elaborate lie. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done in 16 years of marriage. I searched through Erin's personal belongings. I started with her home office, going through her desk drawers and filing cabinets. I found credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to, gas stations near Logan's apartment, and a hotel in Hartford from 2 weeks ago, a Tuesday when she'd supposedly been at a real estate conference. In her jewelry box, I found a burner phone. My hands were shaking as I powered it on. The message history was mostly deleted, but a few fragments remained. Text messages from someone listed as L in the contacts. "Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful. Last night was incredible. You're incredible. He doesn't deserve you." I sat on our bed, the bed we'd shared for 16 years, where we'd made love, where we'd comforted each other through bad dreams and sick days and family emergencies, and read messages from my wife's lover. The most recent exchange was from yesterday. L. "Your husband seems suspicious at dinner. Think he knows?" Erin. "He doesn't know anything. Nathan's not smart enough to figure it out. Too busy with his little warehouse job to pay attention to what's really going on. L. What if you're wrong? Erin. Trust me, I know my husband. He's predictable, boring, and completely clueless. I read that message 3 times, each time feeling something cold and hard settled deeper into my chest. It wasn't just the affair anymore. It was the contempt, the casual cruelty, the way she'd reduced me to a caricature, the boring husband too stupid to notice what was happening in his own marriage. I took screenshots of everything, then powered down the phone and put it back exactly where I'd found it. That evening, Erin came home with Chinese takeout and a story about showing properties to a difficult client all afternoon. She was animated, chatty, asking about my day and commenting on a news story she'd heard on the radio. She was a good liar. I had to give her that. If I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, I might have believed her performance. How's the real estate market? I asked over moo shu pork. Busy, really busy. I've got this one client who's looking at investment properties and he's very demanding. Wants to see everything, wants detailed market analyses, wants to visit properties multiple times before making decisions. Sounds like a lot of work. It is, but the commission will be worth it. He's looking at properties in the 300,000 to 500,000 range. I nodded sympathetically. Well, just don't burn yourself out. You've been working a lot of late nights lately. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But she covered it quickly. That's the nature of the business. Clients want to see properties when they're available, not when it's convenient for me. Of course, I understand. But I was done understanding. I was done being the supportive husband who didn't ask too many questions. I was done being predictable and boring and completely clueless. The next morning, I called in sick again and drove to Logan's gym. I'd done my research. I knew he had a break between clients from 10 to 11 a.m., and I knew he usually spent that time in the juice bar, posting motivational content on Instagram. I found him exactly where I expected, sitting at a high-top table with his phone and a protein shake, typing captions for shirtless mirror selfies. Logan, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. He looked up, startled. Nathan, what are you doing here? We need to talk. Logan glanced around nervously. The gym was busy, full of morning workout warriors and stay-at-home moms attending yoga classes. Not the ideal place for a confrontation. Look, about the other night. This isn't about the other night, I interrupted. This is about my wife. His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos I'd taken at the diner. Logan's face in the image was clearly visible, as was Erin's hand on his arm. Sunrise Diner, yesterday morning, 5:50 a.m. You want to see the rest? Logan's jaw worked silently for a moment. Then he leaned forward, his voice low and aggressive. You following me now? That's pretty pathetic even for you. What's pathetic is a 38-year-old divorced personal trainer thinking he can sleeping with another man's wife without consequences. Maybe if you paid more attention to your wife, she wouldn't need to look elsewhere for satisfaction. The comment hit exactly where he intended it to. But instead of getting angry, I smiled. Logan was playing this all wrong, getting emotional, making threats, confirming everything I already knew. You're right, I said calmly. I should have been paying more attention. But I'm paying attention now. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice conversational. It means I know about the burner phone. I know about the fake client appointments. I know about the hotel in Hartford 2 weeks ago. I know about your financial problems, your car payments, your bought Instagram followers, and the fact that your ex-wife took you for everything you were worth. Logan's face had gone from pale to red. You don't know shit. I know that Erin thinks you're building an empire, but you're actually 3 months behind on rent. I know she thinks you're successful, but your business is failing. I know she's risking her marriage and her career for a man who can't even afford to take her somewhere nicer than the Sunrise Diner. I stood up, looking down at him. Here's what's going to happen, Logan. You're going to end this thing with my wife. You're going to stop taking her calls, stop answering her texts, and find somewhere else to get your dick wet. Because if you don't, I'm going to make your life very, very complicated. Logan shot to his feet, his chair scraping against the floor. Several people turned to look at us. You threatening me? I'm explaining your options. Option 1, you disappear from our lives voluntarily. Option 2, I make you disappear involuntarily. And trust me, you don't want to find out what option 2 looks like. Screw you, Nathan. You think you scare me? You're nothing. A middle-aged warehouse manager with a cheating wife. You're a joke. I nodded thoughtfully. You know what, Logan? You're absolutely right. I am just a middle-aged warehouse manager. But here's the thing about logistics. It's all about moving things from where they are to where they need to be. And right now, you need to be as far away from my wife as possible. I started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Logan? If I were you, I'd be very careful about my car for the next few days. Parking lots can be dangerous places. Lots of things can go wrong. I left him standing there, fists clenched, face red with anger and humiliation. Around us, gym members were staring and whispering. Logan's outburst had drawn exactly the kind of attention a fitness influencer couldn't afford. Phase 1 was complete. I had confirmation, documentation, and leverage. Now it was time for Phase 2. That afternoon, I made a phone call to someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Sophie Mitchell, Logan's ex-wife. We'd met a few times at community events before their divorce, and she'd always seemed like a reasonable person trapped in a marriage to an unreasonable man. After their split, she'd moved across town and kept a low profile, but I'd heard through the grapevine that she was working as a paralegal at a law firm downtown. Nathan Cross? She sounded surprised to hear from me. How are you? How's Erin? That's actually what I'm calling about, Sophie. I was wondering if we could meet for coffee. There's something I need to discuss with you, and I think it might be mutually beneficial. There was a long pause. This is about Logan, isn't it? Among other things. Another pause. Murphy's Bar, 6 p.m. I'll be at the back booth. Sophie was already there when I arrived, nursing a glass of white wine and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. At 41, she was attractive in an understated way. Brown hair, intelligent eyes, the kind of woman who didn't need to announce her presence to command attention. So, she said as I sat down, what's my ex-husband done now? I ordered a beer and got straight to the point. He's having an affair with my wife. Sophie's expression didn't change. I'm sorry, Nathan. That must be difficult. You don't seem surprised. I'm not. Logan's been cheating since before our divorce was final. I figured it was just a matter of time before he moved on to someone new. She took a sip of wine. I assume you have proof? I showed her the photos from the diner, screenshots of the text messages, documentation of Erin's fake appointments. Sophie reviewed everything with the detached professionalism of someone who'd worked in law offices. This is thorough, she said finally. You could use this in divorce proceedings. I'm not ready for divorce proceedings yet. First, I want to make sure Logan understands the consequences of his actions. Sophie looked up sharply. What kind of consequences? Nothing illegal, nothing violent. But Logan's built his whole identity around being successful, desirable alpha. I want to show him, and everyone else, what he really is. Which is? A broke, desperate loser who preys on married women because he can't attract anyone who's actually available. Sophie was quiet for a long moment, turning her wine glass in her hands. What do you want from me? Information. You know Logan better than anyone. You know his weaknesses, his fears, his pressure points. Help me apply the right kind of pressure in the right places. And what do I get out of it? I'd anticipated this question. Logan owes you $47,000 in unpaid alimony and property settlement. He's been hiding assets, underreporting income, claiming his business is failing when it's actually doing okay. Help me destroy his reputation, and his income disappears completely. Then you can go back to court and get a judgment against everything he owns. Sophie's eyes lit up with interest. You've done your homework. I told you I'm good at logistics, moving things from where they are to where they need to be. She was quiet for another moment, then extended her hand across the table. Partners? I shook her hand. Partners. We spent the next hour planning Logan's destruction. Sophie had insights I never could have gained on my own. His pathological need for social media validation, his terror of being seen as unsuccessful, his tendency to lash out when cornered. He's got a temper, she warned. When he feels threatened, he gets physical. Be careful. I can handle Logan. I'm not worried about you handling him. I'm worried about him doing something stupid that ruins everything we're planning. She had a point. Logan was already on edge from our confrontation at the gym. If I pushed too hard too fast, he might do something reckless that would give him sympathy instead of condemnation. We need to be smart about this, I said. Methodical. Let him make the mistakes. Sophie smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all evening. I like the way you think, Nathan. Logan never knew what hit him when we got divorced, and he won't know what's hitting him now. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet again in a few days to coordinate our next moves. As I walked to my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Excitement. For the first time since this whole mess started, I wasn't reacting to someone else's agenda. I was setting the agenda. And Logan Mitchell was about to learn that boring and predictable could be the most dangerous combination of all. The next phase of my plan required patience and perfect timing. I spent 3 days documenting Logan and Erin's routine, building a comprehensive picture of their affair. They met for breakfast twice more at the Sunrise Diner. Erin visited Logan's apartment on Thursday evening, claiming she had to show a property to an out-of-state client. On Saturday, they spent 4 hours at a hotel in Waterbury, while I sat in the parking lot taking photos. By Sunday, I had enough evidence to end their affair and my marriage. But ending it wasn't enough anymore. I wanted them to understand what they'd lost. I wanted consequences. Sophie called me Sunday evening with intelligence that made my day. Logan's got a big client presentation tomorrow, she said. Some corporate wellness contract he's been chasing for months. If he gets it, it's worth about $60,000 a year. He's been bragging about it all over social media. Where's the presentation? Hartford Insurance Group, downtown office, 2 p.m. I thanked Sophie and started planning. Logan's presentation was exactly the kind of high-stakes situation where a little psychological pressure could have maximum impact. Monday morning, I took another personal day and drove to Hartford. The insurance company occupied 3 floors of a glass office building downtown, the kind of place where Logan would want to make a good impression. I arrived at 1:30 and positioned myself in the lobby with a newspaper and a cup of coffee, just another businessman waiting for a meeting. At 1:50, Logan walked in wearing his best suit, navy blue, probably the only one he owned, carrying a leather portfolio and looking nervous. He signed in at the security desk and took the elevator to the 15th floor. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. The Hartford insurance offices were typical corporate bland. Beige walls, motivational posters, the smell of copy toner and stale coffee. I approached the receptionist with my most professional smile. I'm here for the 2 o'clock meeting with Logan Mitchell, I said, showing her my driver's license. Nathan Cross, representing Cross Logistics Consulting. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, looked confused. I'm sorry, Mr. Cross, but I don't have you on the list for this meeting. Really? That's strange. Logan specifically asked me to attend as his business partner. We've been working together on the wellness program proposal. She checked her computer again. The meeting is with Mr. Mitchell only. Perhaps there's been a miscommunication? Perhaps. Could you call up to the conference room and clarify? I'd hate for there to be any confusion during such an important presentation. The receptionist hesitated, then picked up her phone. Mr. Henderson? I have a Nathan Cross here who says he's supposed to be in the meeting with Logan Mitchell. I see. Yes, I'll tell him. She hung up and looked at me apologetically. I'm sorry, Mr. Cross, but they're not expecting you. Mr. Mitchell is already in the conference room, and they've started the presentation. That's very strange, I said, pulling out my phone. Let me call Logan and sort this out. I dialed Logan's number, knowing his phone would be silenced during the presentation. When it went to voicemail, I spoke loudly enough for the receptionist to hear. Logan, it's Nathan. I'm downstairs at Hartford Insurance, but they're saying I'm not expected at your presentation. Did you forget to add me to the attendee list? This is embarrassing, especially after all the work we've put into this wellness program. Call me back as soon as you get this. I hung up and shook my head ruefully. Technology, right? Always breaking down when you need it most. The receptionist looked sympathetic. Would you like me to try calling up to the conference room again? No, that's okay. I don't want to interrupt Logan's presentation, but could you do me a favor? When the meeting's over, could you ask Mr. Henderson to give me a call? I'd like to clarify what happened here today. I gave her my business card, legitimate, with my real contact information, and left the building. Phase 1 of Logan's Monday was complete. At 4 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown Hartford number. Mr. Cross, this is Jim Henderson from Hartford Insurance. I understand there was some confusion about a meeting today. Mr. Henderson, thank you for calling. Yes, I'm afraid there was a miscommunication. Logan Mitchell and I have been working together on wellness program development, and I thought I was supposed to attend today's presentation. I see. Well, Mr. Mitchell didn't mention a business partner during his presentation. That's concerning. We've been collaborating on this project for weeks. In fact, some of the program elements he presented today were based on my logistics and implementation experience. There was a pause. Mr. Cross, I think there may be some confusion here. Mr. Mitchell's presentation was for a personal training contract, not a corporate wellness program. Now it was my turn to pause. Personal training? But we developed a comprehensive corporate wellness strategy, team-building exercises, stress management workshops, leadership development through fitness challenges. Are you saying Logan presented something different? Mr. Mitchell proposed a basic gym membership discount program for our employees, plus some optional personal training sessions. Nothing like what you're describing. I let the silence stretch for a moment, then sighed heavily. Mr. Henderson, I think I owe you an apology. It sounds like Logan may have oversold his capabilities. The program we discussed was much more comprehensive than what he apparently presented today. I see. Look, I don't want to interfere with your business relationship with Logan, but if Hartford Insurance is interested in a real corporate wellness program, something with measurable ROI and proven implementation strategies, I'd be happy to discuss what that might look like. That's actually exactly what we're looking for, Mr. Cross. Mr. Mitchell's proposal was somewhat limited in scope. I understand. Tell you what, why don't I send you some information about comprehensive corporate wellness programs? No obligation, just so you can see what's possible in this space. I'd appreciate that. I hung up feeling satisfied. Logan had probably spent weeks preparing for that presentation, and now his potential client was questioning everything he'd proposed. By tomorrow, Jim Henderson would have a detailed proposal from Cross Logistics Consulting for a corporate wellness program that Logan couldn't deliver. That evening, Erin came home late again, claiming she'd had to deal with a contract dispute. She seemed distracted, checking her phone constantly and barely touching her dinner. Everything okay? I asked. Just work stuff. One of my clients is being difficult. The investment property guy? She looked up sharply. What? Your client who's looking at investment properties. Jessica mentioned he's been taking up a lot of your time. Oh, right. Yes, he's very demanding. I nodded sympathetically. Well, hopefully it'll be worth it when he finally makes a decision. Erin's phone buzzed with a text message. She grabbed it quickly, read the message, and her face went pale. Bad news? I asked. No, it's nothing. Just a client canceling an appointment. But I could see the stress in her face, the way her hands were shaking slightly as she typed a response. Logan was probably melting down about his failed presentation, and Erin was bearing the brunt of his frustration. Good. The next morning, I implemented Phase 2 of Logan's destruction. I'd spent hours researching his social media presence, studying his posting patterns and engagement rates. Logan posted motivational content every morning at 7 a.m., usually shirtless gym selfies with inspirational captions about grinding and hustling and becoming your best self. His posts typically got between 50 and 100 likes, mostly from middle-aged women and wannabe fitness influencers. But Logan had 15,000 followers, which meant his engagement rate was terrible, a clear sign that most of his followers were fake. I created a fake Instagram account using stock photos of a fitness model and started commenting on Logan's posts. Not obvious trolling, just subtle digs disguised as questions. Great post, just curious. What's your client retention rate? Asking as someone thinking about hiring a trainer. Love the motivation. How's your business doing? I heard the fitness industry is really struggling right now. Awesome content. Do you work with corporate clients? I'm looking for someone with experience in that area. Each comment was designed to highlight Logan's professional shortcomings while appearing to come from a potential client. Other followers would see the questions and start wondering about Logan's credentials and success rate. But the real genius was in the timing. I posted the comments just as Logan's posts went live, ensuring they'd be among the first responses people saw. Within hours, other followers were asking similar questions, and Logan was scrambling to respond without looking defensive. Meanwhile, I was building my own professional presence. I created a LinkedIn profile for cross-logistics consulting, highlighting my military experience and expertise in organizational efficiency. I wrote articles about corporate wellness programs, team building, and leadership development. By Wednesday, when I sent my proposal to Jim Henderson at Hartford Insurance, I looked like exactly the kind of professional consultant Logan pretended to be. Henderson called me that afternoon. "Mr. Cross, I've reviewed your proposal, and I'm very impressed. This is exactly the kind of comprehensive program we're looking for." "I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Henderson. I have to ask, what's your relationship with Logan Mitchell? He seemed to think he was the primary contractor for this type of work." "Logan's a good guy, but his expertise is really in personal training. Corporate wellness programs require a different skill set. Logistics, project management, organizational psychology. Logan's great at helping individuals get fit, but scaling that to a corporate environment requires different capabilities." "I see. Well, your proposal demonstrates exactly those capabilities. When could you start?" "I could have a preliminary assessment completed within 2 weeks." "Excellent. I'll send over a contract this afternoon." After I hung up, I sat in my office feeling something I hadn't experienced in months: professional satisfaction. I'd just landed a $60,000 contract by demonstrating actual competence instead of just talking about it. Logan, meanwhile, was about to learn that his biggest potential client had hired someone else, someone who happened to be married to the woman he was sleeping with. That evening, I decided it was time to escalate things with Erin. She came home at 8:30, claiming she'd been showing properties, but I could smell Logan's cologne on her clothes. "How was your day?" she asked, settling onto the couch next to me. "Interesting. I landed a big consulting contract today. Corporate wellness program for Hartford Insurance." She looked up from her phone. "That's great, honey. I didn't know you were doing consulting work. I've been thinking about expanding beyond the warehouse job, using my military experience in organizational development." That's wonderful. What kind of contract?" $60,000 a year renewable. Not bad for a boring warehouse manager, right?" Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe even respect. For the first time in months, she was looking at me like I might be more than just the predictable husband she'd outgrown. "Nathan, that's amazing. I had no idea you were working on something like this." "There's a lot you don't know about me, Erin." She studied my face, probably trying to figure out what had changed. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, I was enjoying her confusion. "Are you going to quit your warehouse job?" "Not yet. I want to see how the consulting business develops first. But it's nice to know I have options." Her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it, and her face went tight with stress. "Problem?" I asked. "No, just work stuff." But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she was gripping her phone. Logan was probably having a meltdown about losing the Hartford contract, and Erin was realizing that her boring husband had just accomplished something her exciting lover couldn't. The cognitive dissonance was beautiful. Over the next few days, I watched Erin's confidence crumble piece by piece. She'd built her affair on the assumption that Logan was successful and ambitious, while I was stagnant and predictable. But now I was landing major contracts while Logan was losing clients and having public meltdowns on social media. His Instagram posts became increasingly desperate. Longer captions about haters and fake people, defensive responses to critical comments, motivational quotes that sounded more like personal affirmations than professional content. Meanwhile, my LinkedIn articles were getting shared by corporate executives and HR professionals. I was building a reputation as a thought leader in organizational efficiency and corporate wellness. The contrast was stark, and Erin was smart enough to see it. On Friday evening, she tried to initiate sex for the first time in weeks. I let her kiss me, let her hands roam over my body, let her think she was seducing me. Then, just as things were getting heated, I pulled away. "I'm tired," I said. "Long week." She looked stunned. "Nathan? Maybe tomorrow night. I've got an early morning conference call with a potential client in California." I rolled over and pretended to go to sleep, leaving her lying there confused and frustrated. For months, she'd been the one rejecting me, making excuses, claiming to be too tired or too stressed. Now the tables were turned, and she didn't know how to handle it. Saturday morning, I got up early and made coffee, then sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, working on a proposal for another potential client. When Erin came downstairs, I was deep in concentration, surrounded by papers and looking every inch the successful consultant. "Morning," she said, pouring herself coffee. "Morning. Could you keep it down? I'm on a call with a client on the West Coast." She nodded and tiptoed around the kitchen, making toast as quietly as possible. I wasn't actually on a call, but she didn't know that. After 20 minutes of fake conversation about corporate efficiency metrics and implementation timelines, I hung up and stretched. "Sorry about that. Big potential contract." "It's fine. You seem really busy lately." "Business is picking up. Turns out there's a real demand for someone with my background and expertise." She sat down across from me, studying my face. "Nathan, can we talk?" "Sure. What's on your mind?" I feel like I don't know you anymore. This consulting business, these contracts, this confidence, it's like you're a different person." I looked up from my laptop, meeting her eyes directly. "I'm not different, Erin. I'm just not hiding anymore." "Hiding what?" "My capabilities, my ambitions, my potential." I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. For years, I've been content to be the steady, reliable husband. The guy who goes to work, comes home, watches TV, and doesn't rock the boat. But lately, I've been wondering what I could accomplish if I actually tried. She was quiet for a long moment. "Is this about the other night? About Logan?" "This is about me realizing that I've been selling myself short, that I've been so focused on being a good husband that I forgot to be an interesting man." "You are interesting, Nathan. You've always been interesting." "Have I? Or have I just been safe? She didn't answer, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was realizing that the boring, predictable husband she'd been cheating on was neither boring nor predictable. That maybe she'd made a serious miscalculation. My phone rang. Sophie, right on schedule. "Excuse me," I told Erin. "I need to take this." I walked into my study and closed the door. "How's it going?" Sophie asked. "Perfect. Logan's falling apart on social media. I've got Erin questioning everything she thought she knew about me, and I just landed another consulting contract. Logan showed up at my apartment last night drunk and ranting about you. He thinks you're sabotaging his business." "Am I?" "Not directly. You're just showing everyone what actual competence looks like. Logan's sabotaging himself by comparison." "What did you tell him?" "I told him to leave me alone or I'd call the police. But Nathan, he's getting desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. Let him do something stupid. The stupider, the better. Just be careful. Logan's not as smart as he thinks he is, but he's not completely helpless either." After I hung up, I sat in my study for a few minutes, thinking about Sophie's warning. She was right. Logan was getting desperate, and desperate people were unpredictable. But unpredictability could be an asset if you knew how to exploit it, and I was very good at exploiting assets. I opened my laptop and started planning Phase 3, the complete and public destruction of Logan Mitchell's reputation. It was time to show Millbrook exactly what kind of man their fitness influencer really was. By the following Monday, Logan Mitchell was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. His social media presence had devolved into barely coherent rants about fake people and haters trying to bring down successful men. His Instagram engagement had plummeted as real followers started unfollowing him, leaving behind only the bot accounts that couldn't understand context. But I wasn't satisfied with watching Logan self-destruct. I wanted to accelerate the process. I'd spent the weekend researching Logan's business relationships, mapping out his network of clients, sponsors, and professional contacts. Like most small-time fitness influencers, his income came from multiple streams: personal training, online coaching, supplement sponsorships, and affiliate marketing deals. Each stream was vulnerable in its own way. Monday morning, I created a detailed dossier on Logan's business practices. Nothing illegal. I wasn't interested in fabricating evidence. But Logan had left a trail of dissatisfied clients, broken promises, and unprofessional behavior that was all documented in online reviews, social media complaints, and Better Business Bureau filings. I compiled everything into a comprehensive report titled Fitness Industry Accountability, a Case Study in Professional Standards, then submitted it to the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection and the Better Business Bureau. I also sent copies to every supplement company that sponsored Logan, along with screenshots of his recent social media meltdowns. The response was swift and brutal. By Tuesday afternoon, Logan had lost 3 major sponsorship deals. His supplement partnerships were terminated for conduct unbecoming of brand representatives. His online coaching platform suspended his account pending investigation of client complaints. Wednesday morning, I received a call from Jim Henderson at Hartford Insurance. "Nathan, I wanted to thank you again for the excellent work you're doing on our wellness program. But I also wanted to ask you about something. Logan Mitchell has been calling our office, claiming that you stole his client and sabotaged his business. He's making some pretty serious accusations." I sighed heavily, as if this was a painful topic. "Jim, I was hoping this wouldn't come up. Logan's been going through some personal issues lately, and I think it's affecting his judgment." "Personal issues?" "Well, I probably shouldn't say anything, but Logan's been having an affair with a married woman in town. The husband found out, and Logan's been spiraling ever since. I think he's looking for someone to blame for his problems." "I see. That's unfortunate." "It is. Logan's not a bad guy, but he makes poor decisions and then blames other people when there are consequences. The accusations against me are just part of that pattern. Well, I wanted you to know that his calls haven't changed our opinion of your work. Your program is exactly what we were looking for. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair feeling deeply satisfied. Logan was now on record making wild accusations against me, which only made him look more unstable. Meanwhile, I was the calm, professional consultant who was graciously concerned about Logan's well-being despite his attacks on my reputation. But the real masterstroke was still coming. That evening, I met Sophie at Murphy's bar to coordinate the final phase of Logan's destruction. "He's completely lost it," Sophie reported. "He showed up at the gym yesterday screaming at his boss, claiming you're part of some conspiracy against him. They suspended him pending a review of his conduct." "Perfect. How are you holding up?" "I'm enjoying this more than I probably should. Logan put me through hell during our divorce, claiming I was trying to destroy his career out of spite. Now he's actually destroying it himself, and everyone can see what kind of person he really is." "What about the alimony situation?" Sophie smiled grimly. "My lawyer filed a motion yesterday to garnish his remaining assets. With his income disappearing, Logan won't be able to make his rent, his car payments, or any of his other obligations. He'll be bankrupt within 60 days. And Erin? That's the beautiful part. Logan's been calling her constantly, begging her to leave you and run away with him. But what woman wants to run away with a broke, unemployed man who's having a public meltdown?" I raised my beer in a toast. "To Logan Mitchell, may he get everything he deserves." Sophie clinked her glass against mine. Amen to that. But even as I celebrated Logan's downfall, I knew the hardest part was still ahead. Logan was finished, his reputation destroyed, his income eliminated, his future prospects obliterated. But Erin was still living in my house, still lying to my face, still pretending to be my loving wife while she slept with another man. It was time to deal with my wife. Thursday morning, I implemented the final phase of my plan. I'd been documenting Erin's affair for weeks, building an unshakable case with photos, text messages, financial records, and witness statements. But documentation wasn't enough. I needed leverage. I started with Erin's professional reputation. Millbrook Realty was a small firm that depended on community trust and referrals. The real estate business was built on relationships, and those relationships could be easily damaged by scandal. I began with subtle inquiries. A casual conversation with our neighbor Mrs. Peterson about whether she'd recommend Erin for selling her mother's house. A mention to my barber that my wife had been working a lot of late nights lately, and wasn't it great how dedicated she was to her clients? Small-town gossip networks are incredibly efficient. Within days, people were talking about Erin's mysterious client who required so much personal attention. The speculation was harmless at first. Maybe she was working with a celebrity, maybe it was a really big commercial deal, but speculation has a way of evolving. By Friday, the rumors had taken on a more salacious tone. People were wondering what kind of client needed to meet with a real estate agent at hotels and diners. They were questioning whether Erin's late nights were really about business. I didn't start these rumors. I just created the conditions where they could flourish. Friday evening, Erin came home visibly stressed. She'd been getting strange looks at work, fielding uncomfortable questions from colleagues, dealing with clients who seemed to be reconsidering their choice of agent. "People are talking about me," she said as soon as she walked through the door. "Talking about what?" "I don't know. Something about my client meetings. Jessica said someone called the office asking if I really had appointments on the nights I said I did." I looked up from my laptop with concern. "That's weird. Why would someone be checking up on your schedule?" "I don't know, but it's making me nervous. What if someone complains to my broker? What if they think I'm doing something inappropriate?" "Are you doing something inappropriate?" The question hung in the air between us. Erin's face went through a series of expressions: guilt, fear, defiance, and finally resignation. "Nathan, we need to talk." About what? About us. About our marriage. About everything. I closed my laptop and gave her my full attention. I'm listening. She sat down across from me, her hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl preparing to confess to the principal. I haven't been happy for a long time, she said finally. I know that's not fair to you, and I know I should have said something sooner, but I didn't know how. What would make you happy? I don't know. Something different. Something exciting. I feel like I'm sleepwalking through my life, going through the motions of being a wife without feeling anything real. I nodded thoughtfully. And you think the problem is with me? With our marriage? I think the problem is with both of us. We've grown apart, Nathan. We want different things. What do you want, Erin? She was quiet for a long moment. I want to feel alive again. I want passion, adventure, someone who makes me feel beautiful and desired and special. And I don't make you feel those things? You make me feel safe, comfortable, but not excited. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. So what are you suggesting? Marriage counseling, a vacation, a trial separation? I think, she took a deep breath, I think maybe we should consider divorce. There it was. The conversation I'd been expecting for weeks. Erin wanted out of our marriage, but she wanted me to be the one to suggest it. She wanted to be the victim of an incompatible relationship, not the villain who destroyed a marriage for another man. That's a big decision, I said calmly. Are you sure that's what you want? I think it might be best for both of us. We could stay friends, split everything fairly, start fresh. And what about Logan? The color drained from her face. What about Logan? Well, if you're divorcing me to be with him, I think that's relevant to the discussion. She opened her mouth to deny it, then closed it again. The game was over, and we both knew it. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Long enough. Are you angry? I considered the question seriously. I was angry. Now I'm just disappointed. Disappointed? In your choices, in your dishonesty, in the fact that you've been lying to my face for months instead of having the courage to end our marriage before starting a new relationship. Tears started running down her cheeks. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, and now we have to deal with the consequences. What kind of consequences? I pulled out a manila folder I'd prepared for this moment. Inside were copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. Photos, text messages, financial records, witness statements. I spread them across the coffee table like playing cards. Erin's face went white as she saw the scope of my documentation. Nathan, I can explain. You don't need to explain anything. The evidence speaks for itself. What are you going to do? That depends on you. What do you mean? I leaned forward, my voice calm and professional. Here's what's going to happen, Erin. You're going to pack your things and move out of this house tonight. You're going to file for divorce next week, citing irreconcilable differences. You're going to agree to a fair division of assets that reflects the fact that you violated our marriage vows. And if I don't, then I'll file for divorce myself, citing adultery. I'll present all of this evidence in court. I'll make sure everyone in Millbrook knows exactly what kind of person you are and what you did to our marriage. She stared at the photos and documents, her hands shaking. You've been planning this. I've been preparing for this. There's a difference. For how long? Since the night of the dinner party. Since you made it clear that you had more respect for Logan Mitchell than for your own husband. Nathan, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can— No, Erin, we can't. You made your choice when you started sleeping with another man. Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. She was crying harder now, mascara running down her cheeks. What about Logan? What about him? Are you going to destroy him too? I smiled, not a nice smile. Logan destroyed himself. I just documented the process. He loves me. Logan loves the idea of you. He loves having a successful, attractive woman validate his ego. But love doesn't pay the bills, and Logan's broke. You don't know that. I pulled out another folder, this one containing information about Logan's financial situation. He owes $47,000 in back alimony to Sophie. He's 3 months behind on his car payments. He lost his major sponsorship deals this week. His gym suspended him yesterday. He'll be evicted from his apartment by the end of the month. Erin stared at the financial documents, her face growing paler with each page. You're lying. I'm a logistics expert, Erin. I don't lie. I just organize information efficiently. Why are you doing this? Because you called me boring and predictable. Because you said I wasn't smart enough to figure out what was happening in my own marriage. Because you turned our entire relationship into a lie. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. But mostly because you never gave me the chance to be anything else. You decided I was boring, so you stopped seeing anything interesting about me. You decided I was predictable, so you stopped looking for surprises. You decided I wasn't enough, so you went looking for more. Nathan, I'm not finished. I turned back to face her. The irony is that while you were busy being disappointed in me, I was building something real. I was developing skills, making connections, creating opportunities. I was becoming the kind of man you claim to want, but you were too busy sleeping with Logan to notice. I noticed. These past few weeks, I've seen how you've changed. Too late, Erin. You can't undo what you did with another man. You can't undo months of lies and betrayal. You can't take back the things you said about me to your friends. She looked up sharply. You heard that? I heard everything. Every cruel comment, every casual dismissal, every laugh at my expense. I didn't mean, yes, you did, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion of me, but you're not entitled to my house, my money, or my respect. I walked back to the coffee table and gathered up the evidence. You have 2 hours to pack whatever you can fit in your car. Everything else can be sorted out through lawyers. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Nathan, please, can't we at least try? No. The finality in my voice seemed to hit her like a physical blow. She sat there for a moment, tears streaming down her face, then slowly stood up. I'll need more than 2 hours to pack 16 years of marriage. You should have thought of that before you decided to end it. She walked toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back. For what it's worth, I am sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, Erin, and now you get to live with that. She went upstairs, and I heard her moving around in our bedroom, opening drawers and closets. I sat in my study and continued working on a client proposal, the sound of my wife packing her things serving as background noise to my new life. 2 hours later, Erin came downstairs with 3 suitcases and a box of personal items. She looked around the living room one last time, then handed me her house key. I'll call you about the divorce paperwork, she said. Have your lawyer call my lawyer. Nathan? What? I hope someday you can forgive me. I looked at her standing in the doorway of what used to be our home and felt nothing but pity. Forgiveness is for people who deserve it, Erin. You made your choice. Now live with it. She left without another word. I watched through the window as she loaded her car and drove away, probably heading to Logan's apartment to tell him about our conversation. But Logan's apartment was about to become unavailable. I picked up my phone and called Sophie. It's done, I said when she answered. Erin's moved out. How do you feel? Relieved. What's Logan's situation? Eviction notice was served this morning. He's got 72 hours to pay up or get out. Perfect timing. There's something else, Nathan. Logan's been making threats. Nothing specific, but he's talking about making you pay for ruining his life. Let him talk. Threats are all he has left. Just be careful. Desperate people do desperate things. After I hung up, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat on my back porch, looking out at the yard Erin and I had landscaped together 5 years ago. Tomorrow I'd start the process of rebuilding my life without her. I'd continue developing my consulting business, maybe travel a little, definitely focus on becoming the kind of man I should have been all along. But tonight, I was just going to sit here and enjoy the silence of a house that was finally honest. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. 3 days after Erin moved out, Logan Mitchell made the biggest mistake of his life. I was working late in my home office Thursday evening, putting the finishing touches on a proposal for a major corporate client, when I heard a car door slam in my driveway. I looked out the window and saw Logan's beat-up Camry parked behind my Honda, blocking me in. This was interesting. I watched Logan stumble toward my front door, clearly drunk, carrying what looked like a baseball bat. He was wearing jeans and a stained t-shirt, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his face flushed with alcohol and rage. Instead of answering the door, I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Nathan Cross at 47 Maple Street in Millbrook. There's an intoxicated man with a weapon on my property, attempting to break into my house. Are you in immediate danger, sir? I'm inside the house with the doors locked, but he's trying to get in. He's been making threats against me for the past week. Officers are on their way. Stay on the line with me. Logan was pounding on my front door now, shouting obscenities. Nathan, get out here, coward. You ruined my life. Sir, can you still hear the intruder? Yes, he's at my front door. He's yelling threats and trying to break in. The pounding got louder. I know you're in there. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you won? I moved to my study window, which gave me a clear view of the front yard. Logan was swinging the baseball bat at my door, leaving dents in the wood. My neighbors across the street had turned on their porch lights and were watching the show. Perfect. Open this door, Nathan. We're going to settle this like men. Sir, the officers should be there in about 3 minutes. Are you still safe? Yes, I'm upstairs and the doors are locked, but he's trying to break down my front door. Actually, Logan wasn't trying very hard to break down the door. He was making a lot of noise and putting on a show, but his swings with the bat were wild and unfocused. This was performance rage, not genuine violence, the kind of tantrum a spoiled child throws when he doesn't get his way. But the 911 operator and the responding officers didn't need to know that. I heard sirens in the distance getting closer. Logan heard them too, because the pounding stopped. You called the cops? You coward! More car doors slamming. I looked out the window and saw Erin's silver Lexus pull up behind Logan's car. She got out and ran toward the front door. Logan, what are you doing? Get away from there. He destroyed everything, Erin. My business, my reputation, my life. And for what? Because you chose me over him? You're drunk. Put down the bat and let's go. No, I'm tired of running from this asshole. It's time he faced me like a man. The sirens were getting louder. Red and blue lights were flashing through my windows now. Logan, the police are coming. We have to go. Now. Let them come. I'm not the one who's been stalking people and sabotaging their businesses. I'm not the one who's been playing games and manipulating people's lives. 2 police cruisers pulled into my driveway, their spotlights illuminating Logan and Erin on my front porch. Logan was still holding the baseball bat, though he'd lowered it to his side. Drop the weapon! The officer's voice was amplified by a megaphone. Drop the weapon and step away from the door. Logan looked around wildly, suddenly realizing the situation he'd put himself in. He was drunk, on someone else's property, holding a weapon, with clear evidence of attempted breaking and entering on my front door. Drop the weapon now. Logan let the bat fall to the porch with a clatter and raised his hands. I wasn't going to hurt anyone. I just wanted to talk. Step away from the door and get on the ground. This is bullshit. That guy in there is the real criminal. He's been stalking me, sabotaging my business, destroying my life. 2 officers approached with their weapons drawn while a third kept Logan covered from behind the car. Get on the ground! Now! Logan complied, lying face down on my front porch while the officers handcuffed him. Erin was crying, trying to explain to another officer that Logan was just upset and didn't mean any harm. I came downstairs and opened the front door. "Mr. Cross?" The lead officer was a sergeant in his 40s, professional and calm. "Are you injured?" "No, I'm fine. I stayed inside like the 911 operator told me to." "Can you tell me what happened here tonight?" I gave him a calm, factual account of Logan's arrival, his threats, and his attempt to break down my door. I showed him the damage to the door frame and the dents from the baseball bat. "Has he threatened you before?" "Yes, several times over the past 2 weeks. He's been having some personal and financial problems, and he blames me for them." "What's your relationship to this man?" "He was having an affair with my wife. We're currently going through a divorce." The sergeant nodded knowingly. He'd probably seen this kind of domestic drama 100 times before. "We're going to need you to come down to the station and give a formal statement." "Of course." They loaded Logan into the back of one of the cruisers. He was still shouting about how I was the real criminal, how I'd destroyed his life through some elaborate conspiracy. To the officers, he looked like exactly what he was, a drunk, unstable man who'd made threats and committed criminal trespass. Erin tried to follow the police car, but her Lexus wouldn't start. She stood in my driveway, crying and trying to call someone on her phone. "Car trouble?" I asked, walking over to her. "Don't," she said without looking up. "Just don't." "I wasn't going to gloat, Erin. I was going to offer to call you a cab." She looked at me then, her face streaked with tears and mascara. "He's not a bad person, Nathan. He's just scared and desperate. Scared and desperate people make bad decisions, like coming to someone's house drunk with a baseball bat. You pushed him to this. You systematically destroyed everything he worked for. I documented his failures and let other people draw their own conclusions. Logan destroyed himself. By having an affair with me? By being a fraud? By pretending to be successful when he was failing? By making promises he couldn't keep and blaming other people when the truth came out?" A cab pulled into the driveway. Erin must have called while I was talking to the police. "This isn't over, Nathan." "Yes, it is. Logan's going to jail tonight, probably for several months given his priors. By the time he gets out, you'll have realized what everyone else already knows. He's a loser who was using you to feel better about his own failures." She got into the cab without responding. I watched it drive away, then went back inside to assess the damage to my front door. The next morning, I received a call from the district attorney's office. Logan was being charged with criminal trespass, attempted breaking and entering, and making terroristic threats. His bail was set at $50,000, money he didn't have. I also received a call from Sophie. "I heard about last night," she said. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Logan made it easy by showing up drunk and armed." The police called me for a character witness statement. Apparently Logan listed me as a reference when they booked him. "What did you tell them?" "The truth, that he has a history of violent outbursts when he doesn't get his way, that he threatened me during our divorce proceedings, that he's been unstable since his business started failing." "That should help with the prosecution." "Nathan, there's something else. Logan's been calling me from jail, trying to get me to post his bail. He's desperate, claiming he'll pay me everything he owes if I help him get out." "Are you going to do it?" Sophie laughed. "Hell no. Logan made his bed, now he can lie in it. Besides, I'm enjoying the peace and quiet." Over the next week, I watched the final pieces of Logan's life fall apart. Without him to make even token payments, he was evicted from his apartment. His car was repossessed. His remaining gym clients found new trainers. His social media accounts were suspended for violations of community standards. Erin tried calling me several times, but I didn't answer. She left voicemails asking me to drop the charges against Logan, claiming he was sorry and would never bother me again. But I'd learned a long time ago that actions have consequences, and Logan's actions had earned him exactly what he was getting. The divorce proceedings went smoothly. Erin's lawyer tried to argue for a larger settlement, claiming I'd driven her to infidelity through emotional neglect, but my documentation of her affair made that argument impossible to sustain. We split our assets fairly, with me keeping the house and most of our savings in exchange for taking on the mortgage and credit card debt. Erin moved in with her sister in Hartford and took a job at a smaller real estate firm. Her reputation in Millbrook was too damaged to continue working locally. Logan was sentenced to 6 months in county jail, plus 2 years probation. The judge was not impressed with his explanation that he'd been driven to desperation by my psychological warfare. 6 weeks after Logan's arrest, I was working in my study when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a woman I didn't recognize, mid-30s, professionally dressed, attractive in an understated way. "Mr. Cross, I'm Jennifer Walsh from the Hartford Courant. I'm writing a story about social media influencers and business fraud. I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about Logan Mitchell. I'm not sure I can help you with that. I understand Logan made some serious accusations against you, claiming you orchestrated his business failure. I wanted to get your side of the story." I invited her in and made coffee while she explained her investigation. Apparently, Logan wasn't the only fitness influencer who'd been exposed as a fraud recently. There was a pattern of people buying followers, exaggerating their success, and making promises they couldn't keep. "Logan's case is interesting because his downfall was so rapid and complete," she said. "Usually these things take years to unravel." "Logan's problem wasn't that someone exposed him," I said carefully. "His problem was that he built his entire identity on a foundation of lies. When pressure was applied, everything collapsed because there was nothing real underneath." "But you did apply pressure." "I competed with him for a business contract and won. I documented his unprofessional behavior when he started making threats against me. I called attention to the discrepancy between his online persona and his actual business performance. But I never lied about him or fabricated evidence. Some people might say what you did was excessive. Some people might say that having an affair with a married woman and then threatening her husband with violence is excessive. Everyone draws their lines in different places." The article ran 2 weeks later, part of a larger investigation into fraud in the fitness industry. Logan was mentioned as an example of how social media can be used to create false impressions of success, and how those false impressions can collapse when subjected to scrutiny. I was quoted briefly, described as a logistics consultant who exposed Mitchell's fraudulent business practices after Mitchell had an affair with his wife. The article didn't make me look like a hero, but it didn't make me look like a villain either. I was just a man who'd fought back when someone tried to destroy his life and who'd used his professional skills to level the playing field. That was fine with me. 3 months later, I was having dinner at Murphy's bar when Sophie walked in. She looked good, relaxed, confident, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Nathan, how are you?" "I'm well. Business is good, the divorce is final, and I'm thinking about buying a boat." "A boat? That doesn't sound like the boring, predictable Nathan that Erin described." Turns out I was never as boring as she thought. I just needed the right motivation to show it. Sophie sat down at my table. "Logan got out of jail last week." "I heard. How's he doing?" "Broke, homeless, and working at a call center in Bridgeport. He's living in a studio apartment above a pizza place and taking the bus to work." "And Erin?" "Still in Hartford, as far as I know. I heard she's dating someone new, an accountant or something." "Good for her." "You don't sound bitter." "I'm not. Erin and I were wrong for each other, and it took this whole mess for me to realize it. She wanted excitement and passion, and I wanted stability and honesty. Those aren't compatible long term." "What do you want now?" I thought about it for a moment. "I want to build something real. A business, a reputation, maybe eventually a relationship with someone who appreciates what I have to offer." "That sounds healthy." "It sounds boring and predictable," I said with a smile. but I've learned that boring and predictable can be very powerful when applied correctly. Sophie laughed. Poor Logan. He never knew what hit him. Logan hit himself. I just documented the impact. We talked for another hour about business, life, and the strange turns that had brought us both to this point. When Sophie got up to leave, she paused at my table. You know, Nathan, if you ever want to practice being less boring and predictable, give me a call. She left her card on the table and walked away, leaving me with a smile and the realization that my new life was just beginning. 6 months later, I was running a successful consulting firm with 12 employees and clients in 6 states. I'd bought the boat, a 30-foot cabin cruiser that I kept at a marina on the Connecticut River. I'd also started dating Sophie, who turned out to be as intelligent and interesting as she was attractive. Logan Mitchell was a memory, a cautionary tale I occasionally told clients about the importance of building businesses on solid foundations rather than social media hype. Erin was someone I used to know, a chapter in my life that had ended badly, but taught me valuable lessons about honesty, respect, and the difference between settling and thriving. And I was Nathan Cross, not boring, not predictable, but methodical, strategic, and absolutely ruthless when someone tried to destroy what I'd built. It had taken me 44 years to figure out who I really was, but it had been worth the wait.